Well, born in the UK, studied in the UK and studied, actually not all in the UK, but studied languages at university. Spent some time at the Sorbonne in Paris, spent some time in Florence studying history of art in Italian. So, it was my passion, language, people, travel, and then I didn't know what to do because I had all these kind of fancy language things. But so I went to hotel school in England. I'm not one of those Swiss graduates, and then started to work. And it was at that point that I left England. I was maybe 20, 21, and moved to Italy, and spent 3 years or so in Italy. Then, excuse me, actually moved to Asia or South Asia after that, and it was my first introduction. I moved to Sri Lanka and was there for a while, and then to the Caribbean, and then to South America. So one of those hotel people that kind of have moved around, and ended up in the US, came out of operations and went on to the development side. And then, we hit a recession in the US in the late 80s, early 90s. At the time Japan went into recession, I was doing a lot of hotels with Japanese companies. So that was really my first introduction to Japan. And I was coming every month or so to Tokyo to meet all your banks and all the groups that were investing in hotels, particularly in the United States, right? And that was kind of where my love of Japan kind of formed, if you like. And after a while, I had been developing a number of Four Seasons, and Four Seasons said to me, "Why don't you come and work for us?" And I said, okay, why not? So I ended up moving to Bali and opening the two Four Seasons in Bali, and ultimately moving to Singapore as regional director, and then as president of Four Seasons for Asia Pacific. And at that time, I actually had two hotels in Japan that I was responsible for. One was, I don't think it's any longer a Four Seasons, it was Chinzanzou, just outside of the city, which was a big wedding event factory and hotel. And we opened the little Four Seasons at Tokyo Station, Marunouchi. Yeah, so a lot of interaction over the years with Japan. And now with Six Senses, a lot of interaction with Japan. Well, I had known the company, being so long in Asia, and particularly living in Singapore, and Six Senses is Bangkok based. I knew the founders quite well, Sonu, Shivdusani, and Eva, and had always thought this is a very interesting company. They had a certain look, a certain feel, very strong in sustainability, good at spa, weren't really doing much wellness, but they were doing the spa quite well. And then I kind of moved to, so I had knowledge of them. I moved to New York for 5 years. I left Four Seasons in 2008, been 15 years with them, and moved to New York and went into private equity. I kind of felt like I needed a different profession. I wanted to do something else. So I went into the transactional side of things. And then after 4 years or so in New York, 4 or 5 years in New York, had the opportunity to actually buy Six Senses. So with a group out of New York called Pegasus Capital.
Oh, yes.
Long story short, we purchased Six Senses, and we closed on that transaction in June of 2012. Okay, and now we bought everything except Soneva brand. So they kept Soneva. We took Six Senses, or bought Six Senses, and Eversol. And I then moved back to Asia at the end of 2012. And our goal was very much to, we had a few goals. One was to make the brand global, right? Because back then it was very much resorts in Southeast Asia, on beaches in Southeast Asia. Plus we had one property in the Middle East in Oman, right? So I had this vision to take the brand global, and not only do beach, but do mountains, do desert, do other kinds of properties. I wanted to go into a number of cities and do urban Six Senses, but in cities that had a lot of leisure business. I didn't want to do business hotels, but like London or Paris or Kyoto or wherever, where a big part of the business is leisure. I also wanted to change the design ethos because I felt that it was too rustic, that it had been the same for 20 years and that today's customer was different to the customer of 10, 15 years ago, and for the amount of money we were charging for our hotels, it needed to evolve and not be quite so Robinson Crusoe, but to be a little more sophisticated, a little more refined, but without losing the values of the company and without still keeping very natural materials, no crystal chandeliers or polished marble, but keeping that ethos, but in a more kind of designed way. So, and then it was the other two goals was to really focus on wellness and sustainability and drive those two agendas very, very hard. Well, I think it's only helped. I think some people will tell you something opposite. They'll say that, now people are concerned about hygiene, so everything needs to be wrapped up in plastic, and so on. We don't see it that way. We absolutely don't. I believe that what we were doing before the pandemic was very relevant, and not many people are doing it, what we do. And post-pandemic, as we come out of it, it's even more relevant. I mean, everyone is talking. And also, in the old days, I would look at sustainability as one bucket and wellness as another bucket. Today, to me, it's one thing. We're talking about wellness of the planet. We're talking about wellness of people and how they behave and how they live, and the two just are joined together. And I really believe everyone is talking about it today. Very few people are doing it. I think from a sustainability perspective, I think it's somewhat shameful that our industry, and I'm talking hotel industry, is not doing more in the world of sustainability generally, and that people talk a lot but don't do very much. And I'm talking about a lot of the big companies out there. You find wonderful independent hotels, maybe have one hotel or two hotels, that are doing a far better job than, maybe a group that has 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 hotels. And we have to do more. And now, I mean, to me, the good part of COVID is that the guest is actually pushing the hotel group into what are you doing? What? It's not enough. The guests are saying it, and the employees are saying it. So I think there's a greater momentum as we come out of this pandemic than there was before, and I see that as only a positive thing, and one of the good things to come out of this period. Well, even this year, which was a rough year, we opened 5 new hotels all over the world. So we've been running around everywhere, and we started in February in Brazil, near to near to Sao Paulo, a couple of hours drive from Sao Paulo, in the hills. Beautiful valley. We took over an existing hotel, which I had mentioned earlier, it looked like a Six Senses. I go, yeah, we don't have to do a lot here, but we've added rooms, or are adding rooms, and are adding villas to it because it was a little small. So the business has been very strong, only domestic for now, because the country hasn't really been open. We then moved to Spain, to Ibiza, and opened there in July of this year, in the northern part of Ibiza, so away from party central, you know, and we're still open actually. Most hotels are shut now, but we will stay open until the middle of January. Extraordinary season. I mean, we were full from the day we opened till probably late October, and even in November, where there's no hotels open. In November in Ibiza, we did close to 30% occupancy, which is really good for our first season, right? So that was Ibiza. We then moved to Israel, and we opened an amazing resort in the Negev Desert in the south of Israel, about 50 kilometers north of Eilat, and literally carved out of the desert. Wow. And the first hotel in Israel to be awarded LEED certification for the entire hotel. And so we're all proud of that, as is the owner, as is the government. So that's good. And then we took over a second hotel in the Maldives, not yet rebranded. We need to do about a year's work on it. So we'll rebrand it this time next year. But we are operating now. It's called Kanuhura. It's in the north, which is good because our first hotel is in the Lamu Atoll, which is in the south. So it's great to have two, one up and one down, right? And then lastly, in the middle of October, we opened in India, in Rajasthan, about 2 hours from Jaipur, close to the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. 700-year-old fort that has been restored and is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it's just the most beautiful thing I've seen. I mean, you have the history, you have the culture, and yet the interior restoration is it's not heavy, it's lighter, there's a touch of contemporary to it. So the counterpoint between the history of the buildings and the approach to design and gardens is something else. So that's this year. Then next year we will open in Morocco, in the south, in the desert, in Tawazazat. We will open in Rome, just off Via del Corso, which is right in the center. We will open in Switzerland, in Crans-Montana. We will rebrand Kanuhura, and we will open in Saudi Arabia. The first of a few projects in Saudi. This one of the Red Sea project. It's called Six Senses Southern Dunes. So next year is going to be busy too, right? And in the meantime, working on a lot more, and a number of hotels in Japan, actually, which I am super excited about.
Yes, so are we.
Yeah, and you know about them, right? I mean, we have something in Niseko, we have something in Hakone, and in Kyoto. So that's going to be a big push. Nothing will open next year, but we're in design of all three now, and we're working on one of them with Kengo Kuma, who's just a joy to work with. He's so creative, and actually we've worked with him on a project in Taiwan.
I see.
And a project in China, neither of which have actually happened yet, but just that, it's amazing. And also we're working on a project in Umbria, in Italy, to support Rome, but out near to Perugia and Old Castle and what have you. Again with Japanese designers. So a group who I'm very close to, a group called Spin, out of Tokyo, and they're more interior than design than architect. But I've done a few things with them before in my last life, so it's actually wonderful to work with Japanese designers and builders, and every hotel in the world never opens when the owners tell you it's going to open, right? It just never happens. And some hotels can be 3 months late or 6 months late or 1 year late or 2 years late, except in Japan. When a Japanese owner tells you we will open on November the 10th, they will open on November the 10th. And they then tell you what time they will open. And we go, okay. And it happens. It just happens. So it's an absolute pleasure to work with Japanese companies, because you're so disciplined and you're so focused and so professional. And it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. I don't care where you are. I mean, I've had hotels that are 2 years late. 2 years late, where the general manager has been sitting there for 2 years waiting for his hotel to open. Oh my God! How long could you keep
One's interest.
We have a rhythm now, and the 5 that opened this year, we've been working on for a long time, right? So it's not like boom, all of a sudden there's 5, but I think the brand has a rhythm to it, and I think that we will, in the next few years, open 3 or 4 or 5 hotels every year. It looks that way from our pipeline. But I also believe that there's 2 reasons, and I mentioned that a bit this morning. Remembering that we don't own hotels, right? So we're dependent on third-party owners. One, there's a lot of capital out there today, more than usual, right? And I think that's because a lot of developers were expecting to be able to find distressed assets because of COVID, and there haven't been so many because the banks have been cooperative, the lenders have been cooperative. So people find themselves with a lot of capital and not sure what to do with it. 1. 2, what we talked about earlier in this interview, what we do today is just so relevant to the market. So we're finding at least double the number of inquiries that we would usually have, and letters and phone calls. We've got a project here, or we have a project there, are you interested? And I think that's because of who we are now as a brand, and our values and what we believe in, right? Oh, well, I mean, firstly, one's working, you're working with an extraordinary culture, okay? That extraordinary in that it's very distinct, okay? There's only one Japan, okay? And so that lends itself to be able to offer a product that is quite different to most other places in the world, right? And then you have the regions within Japan that are also very distinct. So what we do in Kyoto will be different to what we do in Niseko, or it's because that's where you are. One, the food. I mean, the food is the food, right? There's only one Japanese cuisine, and well, that's not true. There's more than one Japanese cuisine, but Japanese cuisine again is very distinct to anything else, and certainly to any other Asian cuisine. That's That's important. You have a design ethos as a country, as a culture that is the closest thing one can describe to perfect. You know, your attention to detail, the smallest detail, is extraordinary, and again, not something that you find everywhere else. So I think that when we come to Japan, you have your own culture that encompasses all of that we wish to embrace. We have our own culture that we wish to translate in a Japanese context and bring our own culture to what we do there. And then we don't want to create product that is a pastiche of Japan. What I really don't like is you know, certainly some Western groups that come to Japan, you know, the way they design and do things, it becomes like a Disney-like version of Japan. I don't want to do that. I almost want to take what you have and put our twist on it so that it's distinctly Japanese, but a little different. You know, maybe a little more contemporary, maybe using materials in a different way, taking a shoji screen, for example, and using it in a different context. That there's no, as I say, there's no mistaking where we are, but that it has our like little touch on it. We will have, you know, what we do that is different to any. We do a few things. I mean, firstly, on the sustainability side, 0.5% of revenue, of total revenue, in every single one of our hotels is allocated to sustainable activity. It does not come to us. When I bought the company, I changed that because that money came into Thailand, and it was all put in one pot and used corporately. I said, no. If the money is raised in Japan, it needs to stay in Japan. So we changed that 10 years ago, right? So we have this pot of money that gets spent on activity that the hotel will recommend, and then we need to approve. We just want to know where that money is going, because it doesn't come to us, but it's our customers that basically are funding that. Two, and if an owner tries to negotiate that, which some do, because 0.5% of revenue is real money, right? We won't do the deal. We won't. We go, no, it's not negotiable. You know, and you'd probably spend most of that money anyway. You just don't put it in a box, you know. But we want to do that. Two, we have standards around construction. So our goal is that all our properties be LEED platinum. Difficult, so we take silver, you know. So that is also part of the contract. Thirdly, every hotel will have a director of sustainability, which very few hotel groups have. You know, usually it's the general manager's assistant that runs a monthly green team or something. But we take it much more seriously. And that director of sustainability sits on the executive committee of the hotel and touches every department. You know, what's housekeeping doing? What's food and beverage doing? What's security doing? And so we put that, there's that commitment at the highest level, at hotel level, and then it's about transference of culture, of sustainability culture. But without those individuals there, you know, even when we hire a general manager, that general manager is interviewed currently by Jeff and by Anna, who runs wellness. Because although we don't expect our general managers to be super knowledgeable They don't have to be experts on wellness and sustainability, but they have to care about it. You know, it has to be part of their DNA. You know, we turned down a GM the other day for Ziggy Bay, who was a fantastic GM with great experience, but he smoked 2 packets of cigarettes a day.
Oh.
I said, we can't. And he said to me, I'll give up. But the way he said it, I knew he'd never give up. We said, I can't. I mean, how can we promote a wellness culture if our GM is like, you know, not like 1 or 2 a day, even 1 or 2 a day I don't like, but not that I have a problem, I hate smokers, it's not that at all. It's like the brand, we have to have people that share our beliefs, even if they're not experts. And that happens with both our wellness person and our sustainability person. Well, they've got to be interesting. I mean, they have to have the ability for us to design activity and things for people to do. I mean, Hakone, we're actually Gora, right? Is obviously all about Mount Fuji. I mean, it's not all about Mount Fuji, but we have Fuji there as, okay, we can do a lot with that, you know. But it's not only that. Niseko is obviously winter and ski and the health and wellness we can design around that aspect of nature. And Kyoto, I mean, Kyoto's Kyoto, right? You know. The one thing I would like to do, I haven't yet convinced someone to let me do it, is to create, because we're still not in Tokyo. I need to be in Tokyo, right? I need to be.
Yes.
But aside from that, I want to create the Six Senses ryokan.
Oh.
And do it a little differently to the traditional approach to ryokan. You know, because we are all about community and people and connecting people. You know, the kaiseki meals that you have in your room in a traditional ryokan. Is okay maybe if you're Japanese because you're used to that, but if you are a Westerner and you kind of want to be, and we want people to connect with other people, I want to find the right way to do the kaiseki, but not necessarily in your room, right? But to do it. I need you want to meet my Japanese guy?
Yes.
Rio.
Is he going by? Walking by?
Rio.
Oh, fantastic. どうもこんにちは。
こんにちは。
お世話になってます。はじめまして
お世話になっております。ヤクワと申します。
よろしく
So
お願い
Rio,
し
you
ま
could
す。
take your mask off and you come and sit here. Wait, come on. You know.
うちの雑誌あちらにすいませんその後ろにあるんです。ホテレスという雑誌の方のはいそうです。はい。で夏も ILTM のうち正式なメディアをさせていただいていて、そのイベントでモルジブの方のフィルさんとか参加していただいたんですね。はい、ウェビナーに参加していただきまして、でそれもありまして、でちょうど日本の方にもオープンされるということで、もうすごくみんな期待してまして。
最近いたしました。
あ、そうですか。はい。
So Rio has been super. Is the person that I've spent most time with this year.
I see.
Because he looks after all the openings we do from a marketing perspective.
Right.
So all the pre-opening marketing and so on. So we've been in Spain together, we've been in Israel together, we've been in India together, and it keeps going.
Right.
You know, it keeps going.
So at this point he has 6 senses in his blood.
Oh, well, actually before me, he was around before me.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that so?
十数年になるんですけど。
そうなんですか。
よろしくお願いいたします。ずっとほぼシックセンスです。そうなんですね。
He gives you all the insights and knowledge about ryokans and
Well, not really. Not really. No, I tell him what I want to do. You know, but
どうもありがとうございます。
申します。
すいま
But
せ
he
ん。そ
tells
ちらに
me
入ってるんで
what I
後でお渡
can't
ししますね。
do. All right. So that's good.
Right.
I pulled you.
I
You
think
know.
you're
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
you too. I need you to be famous too.
Yes,
I need you to be big.
absolutely.
Anyway.
But I mean, it's just so wonderful knowing that you know Japan so well that I think whatever you decide to, open in Japan is going to be very promising. I think it's going to be very good for the community as well.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, we mess up like everybody does, right? And it's not all perfect. But I think all I would say is that our intention is coming from the right place, and our intention is to celebrate wherever we are and pay tribute to the country and a place in the country where we are, but put our kind of stamp on it at the same time, which is a little bit different to perhaps most other hotel companies. And as I was saying, I mean, what I talked about was that Japan offers so much richness in every aspect of what we do that it's not hard to find things to talk about and pay tribute to and to celebrate and so on and so forth. So that's kind of why we're so excited about it.
Yeah, and also in terms of sustainability, it's
Yeah.
quite advanced.
It is.
Yeah.
It was actually leading the way
Yeah,
back in
very
the day.
much.
Like, and also our food concept would go very
Yes.
well with
Yeah.
with the Japanese the culinary culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
We absolutely look forward to your developments in
Well,
Japan.
thank you. Thank you.
So as we get closer to the date of your opening in Japan, and of course we would love to do more interviews at that time as well. So please don't hesitate to ask.
Plenty. There'll be plenty. There'll be plenty of time and plenty of people, and we'd love that. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.